Most people don't actually understand their plants. They react to them. Yellow leaf. Panic. Drooping leaf. More water. Brown tip. Buy fertilizer. But professional plant care works differently. Experienced growers don't guess. They observe patterns. Because plants communicate constantly. Through posture. Texture. Growth speed. Leaf behavior. Soil response. Even timing. And subtle shifts in leaf angle. And once you learn how to read those signals, plant care stops feeling confusing. So today, I'm going to show you how professionals read indoor plants without relying on random internet advice every time something changes. And honestly, this skill changes everything. One of the biggest turning points in indoor gardening happens when you stop memorizing plant rules, and start understanding plant behavior instead. Because healthy plant care is not about following robotic schedules. It's observation. Interpretation. Pattern recognition. That's why two people can own the exact same plant, yet get completely different results. One reacts emotionally. The other studies signals calmly. They understand the underlying biology, like how turgor pressure affects drooping. So in this video, we're going deeper than beginner plant tips. We'll talk about how plants communicate stress. What healthy growth actually looks like, how to notice subtle environmental problems, why timing matters, how professionals diagnose issues logically, and how to stop guessing constantly. And later in this video, I'll show you the 3-layer observation method that completely changed how I diagnose plant problems. Once you understand it, you'll never look at your plants the same way again. Part 1, Stop looking for damage first. This is the first major mindset shift. Most beginners only notice plants when visible damage appears. But professionals observe movement before damage. Have you ever noticed how some people detect plant problems incredibly early, while others only react once leaves start dying? That difference is observation style. Beginners often focus on yellow leaves, brown spots, drooping. But experienced growers notice slowed growth, posture changes, leaf positioning, texture shifts, environmental behavior before major damage appears. They notice internodal spacing, the gap between leaves stretching before the plant actually weakens. I once had a philodendron that looked perfectly healthy from a distance. No yellow leaves. No visible disease. But something felt different. The leaves stopped orienting toward light normally. Growth spacing changed subtly. The plant looked less expressive. A week later, I discovered root stress developing underground. That moment taught me something important: plants communicate quietly before they communicate dramatically. Visible damage is often delayed information. By the time leaves become dramatically unhealthy, the plant has usually been stressed for a while. Instead of asking, "What damage do I see?" ask, "What behavior changed recently?" That question instantly improves plant diagnosis. Part 2, Learn the plant's normal personality first. This part is incredibly important. Because you cannot identify abnormal behavior until you understand normal behavior first. Imagine visiting a doctor who has never seen healthy humans before. Diagnosing illness would become difficult. The same thing happens with plants. Every plant species behaves differently. Some grow fast. Some grow slowly. Some droop naturally. Some constantly reposition leaves. You also need to understand their natural habitat, whether they are tropical or arid. Without understanding baseline behavior, people misinterpret normal traits as problems. When I first bought a prayer plant, I thought something was wrong every evening. The leaves folded upward dramatically at night. I assumed stress. But eventually I learned that movement was healthy behavior, not damage. That experience completely changed how I approach plant observation. Professional plant care starts with familiarity, not panic. The more you observe a healthy plant, the easier abnormal changes become to detect later. Spend time observing plants during morning, afternoon, evening, after watering, after sunlight shifts. Patterns reveal personality. And personality reveals health changes faster. Part 3. Read the light through the plant, not the room. This is one of the biggest professional-level insights. Because plants reveal lighting conditions through behavior constantly. Have you ever thought, this room looks bright enough, while your plant clearly disagreed? That misunderstanding is extremely common. Plants read light biologically. Humans read light visually. Those are not the same thing. Plants often communicate insufficient light through smaller leaves, stretched stems, wide node spacing, leaning growth, slower development, pale coloration. But the key is this: most of these changes happen gradually. Which is why people miss them. I once kept a monstera in a beautifully designed apartment corner. Looked amazing aesthetically. But over months, new leaves became noticeably smaller. At first I blamed nutrients. But the real issue was usable light intensity. The plant had already been communicating the problem slowly. I simply wasn't reading it correctly. Plants don't care how beautiful the corner looks. They respond to biological energy availability. That changes how you evaluate spaces. Instead of judging rooms visually, watch how plants physically respond over time. The plant itself becomes the light meter. Part 4. Watering clues are hidden everywhere. Professional plant care is rarely about fixed watering schedules. It's about environmental interpretation. Have you ever noticed one plant drying quickly, while another stays wet for days in the same apartment? That difference contains information. Water behavior reveals root activity, airflow quality, soil structure, environmental energy, growth rate. Which means watering clues exist far beyond moisture alone. I once had a plant suddenly begin drying much faster than usual. At first I worried. But then I realized something important: the plant had entered an active growth phase. Its water usage increased naturally. That experience taught me, changes in water consumption often reveal internal biological changes first. Professionals often observe how quickly soil dries, how evenly water absorbs, whether leaves respond after watering, how heavy the pot feels over time. Picking up the pot to feel the weight: dry is light, wet is heavy is a game changer. These subtle details create a bigger diagnostic picture. Stop asking only, when should I water? Start asking, what is the plant's current relationship with water telling me? That's a much deeper observation style. Part 5. Learn to observe plant energy. This concept sounds abstract at first. But experienced plant people understand it immediately. Healthy plants have visual energy. Have you ever looked at a plant and thought, it's technically green, but something feels off? That instinct matters. Healthy plants often appear balanced, structured, responsive, vibrant, dynamic. Notice the glossiness and shine of a healthy leaf cuticle. Stressed plants may become visually dull, heavy-looking, static, weak in posture. Even before major damage appears. I once owned a rubber plant that stayed green for months. But the leaves lost their richness gradually. The plant felt emotionally flat. Eventually I discovered compacted soil limiting oxygen around the roots. That experience taught me, plants communicate through presence too. Not just symptoms. Professionals often sense imbalance early because they observe plant energy holistically. Not just isolated leaves. Step back occasionally. Observe the entire plant emotionally and structurally. Not just individual damage points. Part 6. Environmental clues are often more important than symptoms. This is where plant care becomes analytical. Because symptoms rarely exist alone. The environment usually explains them. Have you ever tried solving leaf problems repeatedly, without considering the room itself? That happens constantly. Professionals investigate environments first. Things like airflow, heat sources, window exposure, humidity fluctuations, crowded setups, seasonal shifts. Often explain plant behavior more accurately than random symptom charts online. Test the ambient temperature with your own skin near the plant. I once had a plant developing mysterious crispy edges repeatedly. I blamed watering. Then fertilizer. Then humidity. Eventually I realized the plant sat directly beneath an air conditioning vent. The issue wasn't a care mistake. It was environmental stress. That changed how I diagnose plants forever. Plants exist inside systems. Symptoms are often environmental conversations. Not isolated problems. Whenever something changes, study the environment before changing routines aggressively. That prevents countless mistakes. Part 7, the 3-layer observation method. This is the framework that transformed my plant care completely. And honestly, it's how many experienced growers think intuitively. Imagine diagnosing plant problems without immediately panicking or guessing randomly. This method makes that possible. Layer 1 surface observation. Ask, what visibly changed? Growth, color, texture, posture. This identifies the symptom. Not the cause yet. Layer 2 environmental context. Ask, did lighting change recently? Temperature, airflow, placement. This identifies environmental triggers. Layer 3 timeline analysis. Ask, did this happen suddenly or gradually? Immediately after a change? Over weeks? Timing often reveals the real cause. Taking a quick photo on your phone helps track this perfectly. I once had a plant suddenly droop dramatically. Instead of panicking, I used this exact process. Surface, drooping leaves. Environment, recent cold draft near window. Timeline, symptoms appeared overnight after weather change. The diagnosis became obvious instantly. Cold stress. Not watering. That method prevented unnecessary overwatering completely. Professionals don't magically know plant problems. They analyze patterns logically. That skill can absolutely be learned. Slow down before reacting emotionally. Observation quality improves diagnosis quality enormously. Part 8, Why Guessing Creates More Plant Problems. This is one of the biggest hidden mistakes in indoor gardening. Guessing leads to overcorrection. And overcorrection often creates additional stress. Have you ever changed 3 things at once, then became completely confused about what actually helped? Almost every plant owner does this at some point. When people panic, they often water more, fertilize more, move the plant, repot immediately, mist excessively. All at once. The plant loses environmental stability completely. This creates a severe shock phase that can be fatal. I once reacted emotionally to minor leaf curling on a calathea. Within 2 days I changed watering schedule, placement, humidity, soil moisture. The plant became even more stressed afterward. That experience taught me, panic creates noise. Observation creates clarity. Professional plant care feels calm because it's systematic. Not reactive. Make one thoughtful adjustment at a time. Then observe patiently. That's how accurate plant reading develops. There's one more thing experienced plant owners notice. And honestly, it's difficult to explain until you experience it yourself. Over time, you begin recognizing when a plant feels different. Not dramatic damage. Not obvious disease. Just subtle shifts. A plant that normally looks upright suddenly appears slightly heavier. A leaf texture changes very slightly. Growth loses momentum. The plant becomes quieter somehow. And what's fascinating is this: those tiny signals are often more important than the obvious symptoms people obsess over later. Have you ever looked at one of your plants and instantly felt, something seems off, even before you could explain why? That instinct becomes stronger with experience. Professional growers develop pattern memory. They unconsciously memorize normal leaf posture, normal color richness, normal growth rhythm, normal water usage, normal environmental response. So when something changes, they detect it earlier. Not because they're guessing better. Because they're observing deeper. I remember once walking past a peace lily that looked completely fine to everyone else. No yellowing. No collapse. Nothing dramatic. But something felt strange. The leaves had lost a certain tension. Almost like the plant looked emotionally tired. 2 days later, the soil revealed early root problems beginning underneath. That moment taught me something powerful: the best plant care often happens before visible damage appears. Reading plants professionally is not really about becoming obsessed with problems. It's about becoming present enough to notice patterns. And once you develop that awareness, plant care stops feeling random forever. Final summary. So how do professionals read plants without guessing? They observe behavior, patterns, environmental relationships, timing, movement, energy, growth consistency. And perhaps most importantly, they stop treating plant care like random problem solving. Instead, they learn the language of the plant itself. Because healthy plant care is not really about memorizing rules. It's about learning how to notice subtle biological conversations. That's the real skill. Now I'm curious, what plant signal do you struggle understanding the most? Drooping? Yellow leaves? Slow growth? Leaf curling? Comment below. I genuinely want to know what plant behavior confuses people most. If you want realistic indoor gardening advice for real apartments and real lifestyles, subscribe to the Urban Leaf. Plants rarely communicate loudly first. Most of the time, they whisper through tiny changes. And learning to notice those quiet signals is when indoor gardening starts becoming intuition instead